My ex is fuming because I took him to court and increased his child support payments after my kids told me he's been going on extravagant trips with his new wife and neglecting them while leading me to believe he was broke. Posted by you/enter gingerbread man. So, to start, my 33F ex, Harry, 35M, and I have been divorced for 6 years. We dated a bit in high school when I visited a relative in his hometown, which is a major city, during the summers, but I would break up with him when I went back to my city for school, which is about 2.5 hours away. Not the most mature, I know, but even my parents were like, you don't need a long-distance relationship before you can vote. We kind of kept in touch on Facebook at the time, but during my sophomore year of college, he ended up transferring to my school. We got back together and got married basically right after I graduated and moved to my hometown/city. Our kids, Matt, 11M, and Elise, 8F, came pretty quickly, and we had a few good years before I just felt like I was already a single mom of 3 kids, and was sick of working, doing all the childcare, and handling all the cleaning/cooking/planning. We tried therapy but ultimately decided it wasn't going to work. For over 3 years, it was fantastic. We had a wonderful 50-50 co-parenting relationship. He was such a better father when he had them all to himself, and I finally had the breaks I had been begging for. We agreed never to badmouth each other in front of the kids or make them responsible for our feelings or anything like that. We didn't have to spend a fortune on a divorce because we were able to amicably work everything out, which only benefited our kiddos. In late 2022, he let me know he had gotten back together with Amy, 35F. He said her name a bunch like I should know who she was, and I finally asked. Apparently, she was the girl he had dated when I wasn't in town/before we reconnected. I was honestly happy for him. I'm not interested in dating, to be honest, my kids are too young, I work a lot, and I have a ton of friends and family. Amy lived in his hometown, and I know he visited her a lot when he didn't have the kids. We did week on/week off, but he was always there for his parenting time. The kids met Amy and said they liked her a lot, so I was happy. My parents were also divorced but found other people while still being amazing parents, so I was really hopeful. But in 2023, he let me know he had proposed and would be moving back to his hometown to be with Amy. I was pretty stunned because he was such a dedicated and present father, and I asked how he expected that to work. He was insistent that he wanted to keep 50-50 custody but admitted he could only do every other weekend for parenting time. Before he moved, we didn't have any sort of alimony or child support since we were 50-50 and split big expenses evenly. He said he would continue splitting big expenses evenly and offered me child support since my expenses for the kids would be increasing with them being with me more, not that I was complaining about that. Again, we wanted to work this out ourselves, why spend money on lawyers when we have 2 kids who could use it? I make a bit more than him, not that it really matters, but the first amount he offered, $400 for 2 kids a month, was laughable. I didn't laugh at him or anything but told him that would not be acceptable. He said he was willing to continue paying half of big expenses, which, plus he'd be driving a 5-hour round trip every other weekend since he was the one moving. I thought about it a lot and figured that I am fine financially, as much as anyone is these days, and didn't want to bankrupt him for child support. The most important thing to me was that he continued to be a present and amazing father, so I said I would be okay with $600 a month plus the shared big expenses. I thought he would be happy with this, but he kept grumbling that he thought $400 was more than fair. Ultimately, he agreed to $600. Again, I really wanted to make this work for my kids, so please don't tell me I was an idiot for some of these things. I really went out of my way to be helpful. Like I said, I'm single and have a ton of family and friends, so I had more free time. If they had things going on, I never minded keeping the kids for their weekend, always encouraged the kids to be excited to go there, bought gifts from them for things like Father's Day, Stepmother's Day, Christmas, and birthdays. I don't know if I believe in love languages, but if my kids have them, it's absolutely gift-giving, and it's not like their little bums have jobs or anything, lol, and even worked it out for my relative in their city to pick up our kids from their wedding ceremony since they had an adults-only reception. These kind gestures were never reciprocated. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe I was just doing too much, and tried to take a step back. Then the kids told me that on some of the weekends they stayed with me, Harry and Amy had gone on vacations to places like Europe and Disney. I don't follow them on social media, obviously, so I had no idea. I go on vacations too, but the idea of going on such an expensive trip without taking my kids sounds nuts. They're great travelers. We actually went to Japan last summer and had a blast. Maybe I'm an annoying parent, but I couldn't believe he'd leave the country or go to freaking Disney and not only leave the kids behind but also not even let me know. I wanted to remain amicable, but after I found that out, the favors stopped. For the past few months, anytime he asked me to keep them for a weekend because they had plans, I'd say, "Oh, sorry, same, good luck." Yes, even if it was far in advance. I wasn't trying to be petty, but it wasn't as if they were asking to switch weekends, it was always just skipping them. I know his family is useless, no idea about hers, but he should be able to make time for his children 4 days a month. Then, a few months ago, I found out he'd been asking my relatives in his city for help. Sometimes they did if they could, but not always. I didn't want to keep bothering them, so I ended up saying yes to keeping the kids more, plus, I obviously love them. But I started keeping track of every time he asked me to keep them. Over a 5-month period, it was 5 times. Around that time, Matt had told me some pretty upsetting things and confided that he was okay with staying here more. I made it clear that he could tell me anything and that none of it was his fault. But he told me that when he was at his dad's, both he and his sister had to be in their rooms by 8 p.m. Keep in mind, this is on weekends. They didn't have to be in bed, but they weren't allowed in the living room or to have friends over. I asked if his dad and Amy were home during these times, and he said yes, but Amy's dog is aggressive, so they keep it in their room during the day. When he and Elise go to their rooms, they let the dog out so it's not cooped up all day. I love dogs, we have 2, but what the F? Elise got a bad flu a few visits ago and apparently asked Harry if he could sleep in her room, but he refused, saying he needed to sleep with Amy. Our kids do not co-sleep, but we always let them sleep with us if they're sick and ask. I don't expect Harry and Amy to let her sleep with them or anything, both kids are never allowed in their room because of the dog, but why couldn't he have stayed with her, even just until she fell asleep? I didn't say this to them but told Matt and Elise that their dad had just gotten over the flu and probably didn't want to get sick again. I know that makes no sense, and I shouldn't have lied, but they were upset. The worst, in my opinion, is that when Matt randomly told his dad he wanted to see him more, Harry yelled at him, saying he was seeing him plenty already and that he should want his dad to be happy and not miserable and alone like his mom. I'd like to reiterate that I'm very happy being single and have turned down a lot of guys. I prefer spending time with my friends and kids and can date when they're older. I don't like the stats on unrelated men being around kids and don't feel the need to risk it anyway. So, between all this and the missed visits, I decided I needed to stand up for myself and my kids more. If Harry could go on European vacations, he could afford more child support, and I was done keeping up the appearance of 50-50 custody when he only had the kids about 45 nights in 2024. So, I told Harry I was going to file for updated child support and primary custody and get everything in writing and signed off by a judge. He said he was okay with raising child support. Apparently, he had gotten a few raises since we settled it and said he would be fine with upping it to $750. First of all, you got all these raises and didn't even think to increase it yourself, despite skipping almost half your agreed visitation? And that low of an amount, I told him it was insulting and that we could just let the court figure it out. He reminded me that I made much more than he did, and I was like, yeah, that's why I'm able to take them on vacations when apparently you couldn't scrounge up enough money to take your children to Disney World. I know that was immature, but I was pissed. He tried arguing more, but I told him I didn't intend to fight with him outside of court and filed. Obviously, because I'm writing this, the judge agreed to almost all of my requests. Child support was increased, I have primary custody and decision-making authority, and it can be adjusted further if he continues skipping weekends. To be honest, this has all helped me tremendously with the kids and their increasing expenses and needs. We only communicate via text or email, and it's only about the kids. But a mutual friend of ours told me that, at a wedding recently, Amy and Harry spent a bunch of time complaining about me, calling me high conflict and a parasite, and much worse things when they drank more, but I won't repeat them. I got upset. My only goal is for my kids to have a great childhood and a present dad, and I feel like I screwed that up. My friends told me that Harry's the one who messed it up, but I'm really doubting myself. So, am I the jerk for pushing my ex to do more? Relevant comments. Commenter. They can call you anything they like, but the proof is in the pudding, as they say. Who is full custody? Where do the kids live? Where do the kids want to be? Harry and Amy are showing their ugly faces to the world, and everyone can see it for what it is. You better be able to as well, or you will be easily manipulated again. Ops response. Yeah, they did say to our friends that I blindsided him for custody, and they asked if that was true. I laughed and showed them the receipts. I know they are wrong, but I'm worried I blew up our co-parenting relationship, and that it will affect my kids. Commenter 2. Good for you for looking out for your children. You have done all you can to make this a positive situation. I would worry if they have children together, it is only going to get worse. Ops response. I knew this, but another messed up thing is that, apparently, at one point, Elise asked Amy if she was going to have a baby, and Amy told her that she had her tubes tied, so no. But she didn't elaborate, and Elise is only 8. Like, Matt would have understood, but we haven't had any of those kinds of talks with Elise before this, and she was devastated, asking me why Amy had tubes. She's apparently always been child-free, which is totally fine. I have a lot of friends who didn't and still don't have kids. And I did talk to Elise about not asking people about things like that again. Commenter 3. My guess is Amy hates you and your kids because she feels she's always the runner-up with your husband. He dated her when you weren't around. He married her after you divorced. She feels like she's not his first choice and wants to see you suffer as she feels she did. That's my guess. I have family members like her. Ops response. I don't know if this is true. She told our friends that she knows I always felt a certain way about her and claims my jealousy is why they couldn't have been friends, but I literally had no clue who she was. I knew he dated other people when we broke up, but that's fine, so did I. Update 3 days later. Unfortunately, things have deteriorated since my last post. To get this out of the way, I am in therapy, and so are my kids. I know Harry was seeing someone when he lived here, but I have no idea if he still does. He was supposed to have the kids next weekend as scheduled. Wouldn't you believe it, but the other day he called, they got last-minute tickets to a concert out of town and asked if the kids could stay here. I let him know that I actually had plans for the entire weekend that had been set months ago, so he asked if I could either bring them or if they could stay with one of my family members in my city. I normally would have done just that and marked this off as another missed visitation, but I was just sick of it. I told him he needed to figure it out, not to call my relatives in his city. They were not his personal free babysitters, and he was their father, so he needed to start acting like it. He got upset and said he was drowning. I almost laughed but didn't, asking him what he meant, and he said he was struggling financially due to the child support and felt like I was trying to punish him for moving. He said I was allowed to be upset that we weren't together anymore but needed to put the kids first and work with him. I couldn't believe he was saying those things. He knows why our marriage ended, and he knows that I have moved mountains to make our co-parenting relationship work, and I have pages of texts and emails of him thanking me for being so accommodating and sympathetic to his situation, some from just a few weeks ago. I hung up. I was at work and did not have the emotional bandwidth to be lied to about this crap. He tried calling me back a few times, but I had meetings, and I realized I shouldn't have spoken in anger, so I wanted to calm down. He even had his wife call me a few times, but I let it go to voicemail. She left a few cruel ones, nothing shocking, just saying I'm bitter and jealous that Harry moved on and want to punish them. I want to emphasize again that I would rather cut my legs off than be back together with him. I'm the one who filed for divorce and stuck to my guns. It's like these two live in some kind of delusion where I not only want my ex back, barf, but have never helped them once. When I got home, I pulled out the calendar for the past 2 years, which had every missed visitation, including last-minute requests, all color-coded accordingly. I emailed this to both of them and said that Harry was responsible for arranging appropriate childcare during his visitation. I added that if he was finding that challenging, we could consider changing the visitation schedule to something more accommodating to their busy lifestyles. Then I left to take my kids to their sports practices. I didn't hear from him. Normally, Harry calls our kids every school night around 8 p.m., but he didn't that night. I felt guilty, as I've said the only goal here is for my kids to grow up with a present father. It might have been dumb, but I did call him that evening so he could say goodnight to them. He sent me to voicemail. I told the kids he had gotten caught up at work, which happens often enough that they weren't weirded out. At about 3 a.m., he sent me maybe the longest text in recorded history. I have my phone on sleep mode but keep his and my parents' numbers set to alert me for obvious reasons, and I'm a light sleeper, so I did wake up. But I was half asleep, saw how long the text was, and decided it was a problem for the morning. I wish I had gotten up because he ended up sending a few more. The texts really just proved that they do not occupy the same reality as me. They were all self-centered and deranged, and even when he brought up the kids, it was all about him, his wife, and their lives and feelings, saying that it is my job as a mother to facilitate the kids' relationship with him because he could have easily forced me to move to the city he's in, WTF, but chose not to so I could stay here with my support system. That I don't thank Amy enough for opening her life to the kids by keeping her dog in their room when the kids are here and giving them their own bedrooms, even though they're empty much of the time. That he and Amy are young newlyweds, they are neither of those things, and deserve to have that honeymoon period with trips and opportunities without me putting up roadblocks. A lot of it was that insane belief that I am somehow jealous and have always been jealous of Amy and need to get over that for the kids. Apparently, my cruelty knows no bounds because I have never driven the kids to him in his new city. The court order is for him to do so since he's the one who moved. This is standard. And, no offense, I'm already furious that my kids have to spend so much time in the car every few weeks, and I'm not putting miles on my car just so that he doesn't have to drive more. At one point, because I know the kids hate the long drives, I offered to split costs for flights between our cities, which are like 30 minutes and anywhere from $50 to $75 per ticket, so not cheap, But it saves time, and he refused, saying the airport in this city is annoying to get to. There is no direct Amtrak between our cities, it would be like 8 hours plus, I believe. They might just get full custody and make me be the one to jump through hoops to see my children so that I can know how they feel, simply just get full custody because apparently, in their world, they deserve every little whim of their own desire. He accused me of financial abuse for upping child support when I wasn't destitute. Apparently, unless I'm living under the poverty line, my kids don't deserve financial help from their father. I have PTO to burn and just decided to take one today because I'm so overwhelmed and upset about all of this. Yes, I did screenshot all of these for my lawyer. I don't want to be the cause of my kids' father abandoning them, but I have been at and beyond my limit for so long I don't know what to do. They both treat me so horribly and make these assumptions that are simply not true. I want my kids to have their dad in their lives. I've run myself ragged making it work, taking up the slack when they dropped weekends, doing all of the mental heavy lifting for looking ahead and switching weekends if, for instance, Father's Day falls on mine or her birthday, when I know she doesn't want them around, falls on their weekend, and planning ahead of time / contacting them. I'm so done. I want to offer this, fine, you win. No more child support. Keep all your money. You can see the kids the weekends after Christmas and Thanksgiving, those are when they celebrate the holidays anyway, and on Father's Day, but otherwise, they're with me. You too can live your child-free life, and me and my kids will be just fine without you. I can't keep putting up with this abuse, I'm at my breaking point. Relevant comments. Commenter. Don't open the door to him not providing child support. You should use all the evidence you have to get more custody and also increase his child support. Forget your ex for wanting to abandon his kids and for thinking he can actually get full custody when he's constantly bailing on his current scheduled times. He's delusional and thinks threatening you will get you to let him do as he pleases. The reality is, his lies won't get him anywhere, and he doesn't have the power to follow through on any of them. Ops response. I've been devastated all day. I know logically that the only way he could possibly get full custody is if I were to die, and I can't stop crying, thinking about my kids being forced to their rooms every night at 8, never going on trips to do fun things, and living with a stepmom who can't stand kids. I probably shouldn't have posted because I'm so upset and emotional, but I'm so lost. I don't like talking to people in real life about this, other than my therapist, because I don't want to poison them against my ex or burden them with my problems. But this is the only thing since my divorce that I feel so alone about. I feel like I failed my kids by giving them Harry as a father. Commenter 2. For the love of everything, please stop trying to force a relationship between your kids and a man who so clearly doesn't give a damn about them anymore. You have no idea how cruel it is to the kids. I grew up like this. I felt unloved, unwanted, and never understood by a father who was more interested in traveling the world, earning money, which he then put in a safe because otherwise, it was in an account that could be checked during child support hearings, and telling me about his girlfriends. Yes, they will ask where daddy is, and you'll be honest and tell them you do not know why he's not coming or picking them up. Stop lying to them and acting as if they have a loving father. Ops response. Please know that I'm never forcing anything. My kids do love their dad. If they told me to my face that they absolutely didn't want to go there, I wouldn't make them. The thing is, they don't know how much I dislike their dad. I don't want them to feel bad about talking about him to me. But it's kind of turned into them thinking I like their dad and don't want to talk badly about him to me. I'm working with their therapist to help change that mindset. They know I'm not only on their team, I'm their biggest supporter. Op adds an edit to her post. Sorry if I can't reply to everyone, and sorry for the awkward formatting. I initially wrote this in the Notes app because writing in the Reddit app is annoying. I'm also pretty emotional right now, but I think you've already changed my mind about offering to drop child support. I will be going for full, 100% custody, though,